Hello viewers, welcome to Candid Conversations with Ganesh Kuppala. You have seen many politicians, business people on my show previously. While my audience were looking for some financial advices and all, so we actually wanted to do some financial tips series. While I was doing that and researching on various topics on financial tips, one of the most commonly asked questions in the immigrant community is about remittance. So I thought, why not start with remittance? So I brought a remittance expert with us today. Daiyaan Alam, who's South Asian head for LemFi, is with us today. Let me introduce you quickly to Daiyaan Alam in Candid Conversations with Ganesh Kuppala. Welcome to you, Daiyaan.
Hi, hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, first of all. As you know, my show is primarily focused on more of the business stuff, politics, and kind of more to do with the people, right? So while we were talking about various of these topics, so in the recent times, I've been asked a lot of questions about financials because I'm a tax guy and financial experts as well. So it's quite obvious people do come to me and ask about financials. And it's festive time. Everyone is talking about remittance. Everyone wants to send money home.
Obviously.
So then we are here to talk about a lot of remittance topics. But before I go into those specifics,
Yes.
I would love to hear about how did you start? I've seen your profile. It's a brilliant profile. You have done a lot of work in the finance sector. So why don't we start with your quick introduction and see who you are and then take it from there.
So my name's Daiyaan. I actually graduated, I'm originally Pakistani. I graduated from one of Pakistan's premier business schools by the name of the Institution of Business Administration, IBA. However, right off the bat, I did not come out as a financial person, right? Because whenever you think finance, you're always probably thinking somebody, a very boring job, behind a desk, stuff like that. But I actually started my career with, one of Pakistan's first online e-commerce platforms that used to sell, lingerie, right? And that was from there I entered into the advertising world. From the advertising world, I had my own agency, right? And then I was a thoroughbred marketeer when I first got my experience with a commercial bank, a full-fledged commercial bank. That's when I got my experience with the finance world, and I understood, okay, finance. In order to be into financial services, you don't need to be a finance person per se, right?
Yeah.
It's just about it's common sense with a bit of experience, right? And obviously an acumen for it, a drive for it, right? The best thing about the finance world for me was, as a young person growing up, you always want to make a mark. I'm not going to say that the finance world is the only way to make it.
Yeah.
But it can be a very big way how you can personally create a mark, a dent, by bringing in a macroeconomic difference for your country, for your the South Asian bloc in specific as well, if I may, and then obviously with time I saw how finance and financial services was actually an eventuality for any use case that you were going towards. And it became an answer for a lot of the problems that people generally look into. So I'll pick on remittances for that matter, right? As in remittances, by the name, sounds very scientific, sounds very boring. But if you look at it, you build in some EQ into it.
Yeah.
Every remittance is a huge story, right? There's always a story behind it, right? It could be family support. It could be somebody getting married, buying, their clothes for their wedding, or buying a gift, or multiple stories and perspectives behind it, right?
Health and could be health, biggest thing,
could be health as well. Could just be a way of somebody probably telling their loved one that they love them.
So
right?
true.
So essentially, that's where I personally started feeling that this particular industry is one that really floated my boat in terms of the motivation I had in life as well, and that's really how I got into it. LemFi was obviously kind enough to have me, right? Back then, Just to give you a little introduction about LemFi as well. LemFi is, a fairly new kid on the block, if I may, but it is one of the most fastest growing players in the market, right? We are currently operating within the UK, US, and Canada.
Yeah.
We've just recently, just last month, we've entered Europe as well.
Brilliant.
And interestingly, when I came in, my motivation with South Asia was obviously that, you generally talk about India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and generally you see the world sort of throwing them into either MEA, or you see them throwing it into that block into APAC, right?
Correct.
However, we are a very different, block altogether with our own identity, right? And we try to, make ourselves heard. Obviously, write our own stories multiple ways, right? Through music, through obviously Bollywood as well, Bollywood, Lollywood, all of the film industries as well.
Yeah.
But then obviously within remittances, we were one of the first companies to actually give Pakistanis, Indians, Bangladeshi, Sri Lankans that identity of being South Asians, right? And to actually tell their own stories as well. Interestingly, LemFi is a 100% immigrant company as well. So we understand that a lot of people may talk about remittances, but not a lot of people talk about the issues that immigrants and overseas, Pakistanis or NRIs, really generally face.
Very interesting. Dan, we'll go into details of that.
Yeah, for sure.
But just to start, I mean, I know you said you started with financial sector, marketing a lot. You've been CEO of your own firm, is it?
Yeah.
You started your own firm.
100%.
That's a brilliant experience. Yeah. And then you moved into remittance.
Yes.
Okay. Especially, just to understand, because my audience would love to know about leadership, right? So while you're working on building your own firm and all, what were the different learnings, and why would you move from being your own boss to work for someone else? How did that transition happen? Was it difficult for you, or is it?
As in, it's always about, so, as a professional, I'll say that, keeping control of your own ego, right, is something very important, right?
Yeah.
And that's very that comes part and parcel to development as well, right? And obviously you need to be able to change hats as you go, right? True. For me, I was always hungry to learn more, right? Be it being my own boss, be it working with somebody else, right? I never shy away from bending down to somebody who probably, out of respect for somebody who I think has more experience and can teach me more than what I currently know. So obviously self-policing a bit, having a bit of introspective insight about your own self, obviously. So essentially, when I entered the corporate world, obviously, I knew that I was a marketeer. I knew I was an entrepreneur, right? But I obviously knew that I didn't know a lot about finance, right?
Makes sense.
And the financial services sector, right? And the best way to probably do that is to go to the horse's mouth itself, right? And essentially, coming into a bank, a commercial bank, and then obviously getting experience with a global entity, a global company, an e-commerce company with a mandate for fintech, right? Working with them, and then eventually, obviously setting up an EMI in Pakistan, right, from scratch, and then eventually coming to, obviously LemFi, setting up the South Asian block.
Yeah.
That was something, obviously, that kept on helping me to learn.
Brilliant,
right?
brilliant.
And I'm still learning.
You would have seen a lot of things during the time.
100%,
Because
100%.
what's interesting about, because I'm a mentor as well. I help some startups, and what's the best part of any firm's journey is the first 10 years.
100%.
If you go and talk to, Elon Musk, or if you go and talk to who are the biggies are, they would come back and tell you, where did you learn the most? I learned the most in the first 10 years.
100%.
So my question to you, because LemFi is, newbie in the business, when we talk about remittance, we talk about big players. The banks itself do a lot of remittance, and then we have Remitly, we have other players, Vans, Wise, there are multiple players, right? I mean, all those players does come into picture.
100%.
But how did your journey start with LemFi? Why only LemFi was a choice for you? Is it because of the interesting facts about LemFi, or it just happened?
Actually, LemFi really, made a mark on me.
Okay.
Right? So I remember back when I was joining LemFi, I got the chance of meeting both our co-founders, right?
Okay.
Ryan, who's originally from the US, but now is living in Norway, and Ridwan, who's originally from Nigeria, and he's been, living in the UK as well. Goes back and forth. Interestingly, when I met them, right, they took pride in the fact that LemFi is a 100% immigrant company.
Brilliant.
Right? And obviously, when I came out, I'm currently in Norway, and obviously for me, the first year was actually very troublesome, and the reason for that was that initially one of the biggest problems that because it's very easy to say that you leave your home country and you get to another country, but not a lot of people realize that the first issue that you face is getting integrated into the financial system, even into of the country, right? Let alone all the cultural integration, the job integration, all of that. Everything comes after you've been integrated into the financial system, right? And that's when they shared the vision that because they have been immigrants in their own selves, right? They want to, their aim was not only to enable people to send money back home, but to also mitigate within this journey, mitigate immigrant financial marginalization, which a lot of people don't even talk about. And if you look at migration has been a very old concept, right? And it's still, every year, I hope, I'm not giving out the wrong numbers, but approximately every year migration increases by 10%, right?
True.
And specifically to OFAC countries, right? And the countries that we're coming from, right? Pakistan, for example, from my end, right? Financial literacy is not exactly, top of the list of a lot of countries, right? A lot of people maybe in different phases of life as well. Existence could be possibly a challenge that somebody's probably tackling towards. So obviously, when they come out, this is a whole new world for them, right? And they need a friend, right, that helps them take them through that specific journey, right? And that's what the co-founders told me. We're here to help immigrants.
And you bought into
right?
it.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, let's come back to LemFi later, but just to understand remittance world itself, me being a tax expert or finance expert, I still struggle to understand some of the factors, right? There are so many things that changed, especially in the last decade. And especially in South Asian region, you can see money being remitted much more than in the last decade, right? One is that. And what else you think is the key trends that have changed in the remittance industry in the last, because the apps, all this stuff was not there before. So all that we knew, I mean, I was in US in 2009. Even back then, all that I know is if I have to transfer money, there are only two options for me. One, I know why transfers, what I have to do.
100%.
Two, I have to go to a proper bank and write the receipt, pay so much of money to send my own money, which has completely changed now.
100%.
And I know one of your flagship pieces in the no transaction fee and all that stuff, right? So remittance itself has changed the face so much in the last decade, especially in the last 5 years. So what is your take on the changes in the remittance industry in the decade?
As in, obviously, one trend, obviously, that you rightfully mentioned is that remittance is increasing by the day, right? If you go back probably 15 years from today, right? You would probably remember that if you had to send money anywhere, for example, somebody is in the UAE wants to send money back to India, right? They needed an overdraft for that, right?
True.
And obviously, it usually took a couple of, even a week probably, right? But now with the advent of technology, right, there's a lot of competition in the market as well, right?
True.
And it's become, the competition so razor sharp that now it's become a matter of minutes, seconds, right? Even microseconds for that matter, right?
True.
Essentially, what I'm seeing is obviously with the advent of technology, that plays a part. Secondly, obviously, because of technology coming in as well, data has become very transferable, right? So essentially, you could be one of the many issues that people used to face or immigrants used to face was they could be person A in Pakistan, but that person A wasn't recognized in probably the UK, the US, Canada.
True.
But now since interconnectivity has increased so much, right? you see that information gathering of information, verifying a person, right, has become a lot more easier. Although I would say there's a long way to go in that, right? There's a long way to go in that. Globalization would essentially entail people to have a global identity. We're still far from it, right? But we're approaching that. So essentially, the speed at which, obviously, money can be sent back, the cost at which the money can be sent back. Obviously, all of these factors are really changing now. But essentially, one just to let our customers even know that there's nothing known as a free lunch in the world, right? So essentially, someone down the order is paying for a specific service that you're getting. LemFi and its DNA, since I previously mentioned, we tend to give back to our community as much as we can, right? Yes, we're a for-profit company, but essentially there is a cost of that transaction as well. But then we try to take over that as much as we can, right?
Minimize your profits, maybe. Yeah,
exactly.
That makes sense. So what comes to me whenever I talk about remittance and sending money across different countries, the biggest question comes to anybody for that matter is the security, safety. Okay, I'm pulling my money from my account and putting into this random app. Okay, don't get me wrong.
100%.
But because if I'm a new user to any apps, I'm not talking about only your firm, but generic, then the question would be, okay, now I'm sending 100,000 into this.
100%.
Would this go
100%.
or not? So those are the basic security questions comes into picture, right? So what are the few important things that a user, customer should watch out for to not to get into a trap of wrong apps? Because how money trapping is happening in the world now. There's so much of hacking and various things. I don't want to get into extreme detail, but cybercrime is a very common. And if you look at even in UK, we are sitting in UK, London. If you go back and check with the authorities, they will tell you the biggest crimes happening through cyber.
100%.
So how are we as a users feeling comfortable with apps like you? What are your...
I'd probably give a lot of credit to the central bank of every country, right? They're playing a major role within it,
Okay.
right? They've got a very tight regulatory environment, right, that you need to comply to as well. One of the major things to see probably is also that is the company that I'm dealing with, is that company actually registered with the name it is registered on, right? For example, I'll give you an example. LemFi is an EMI in the UK, right? So we have to abide by all regulatory frameworks.
Could you elaborate on EMI for people to understand?
It's an electronic money institution, obviously, and we're a registered.
And how is it different from a bank? I'm sorry for stopping
As
you.
in, it's more payments when you're talking about an EMI as opposed to a bank. A bank would obviously there are a lot more different products that you can give other than just payments within a bank. Within a bank, obviously. However, with an EMI, you're specifically looking into payments. So obviously, once you're a registered firm, right, and you're complying by the regulatory framework of a country, right, then you need to manage all of those things for yourself. So, for example, we have our own a very heavy duty fraud risk management system, right?
That's good.
Where we're always looking for fraud, we're always looking for obviously people, and this part and parcel also comes in because of a compliance of international watchdogs as well that you have, right? So, for example, I'll give an example of a watchdog, the FATF, right?
Yeah.
There's a very big mandate that it works on as well, which is anti-money laundering, counter finance, terrorism financing, right? Which you need to obviously take care of as well, right? So essentially, whenever you're specifically engaging with a specific fintech or financial institution, you need to obviously first check if this is even a registered financial institution. How are they really, working on it? And then obviously, we've got once you're within that stream of being an officially, registered financial institution, you're also abiding by a lot of firewall requirements as well. You're also looking at a lot of different requirements for consumer data protection as well, right? So essentially,
so all this is brilliant. Then sorry again, but quickly, from the regulatory point of view, it makes complete sense, and I think we both are speaking the same language. I do understand that. But my question is more from the consumer point of view. If I'm a new user, I have 10 apps in my head, who should I go to? And how do I avoid the wrong players? Is there a way at all? Or you just have to
As in, see, you need to
do
do
your own
some
research. Your own research,
You do need to do some research on it. You need to research on, is this company a hoax, or is this company an officially registered company with the name that they're, obviously with the entity or the nature of the entity they say they are.
But have you ever come across any risks there? I mean, do you know? I mean, as you guys deal with it on a bigger scale, do you have any financial risks? I mean, do you get any litigations around? Okay, this happened. Some other apps we have used something on your name or itself, or something happens.
As in, honestly speaking, the regulatory environment has become so strict now, right? That essentially we barely see that happening. But I wouldn't say it's impossible, right? And yes, there are cases where things happen, not with LemFi, obviously.
For anybody.
Obviously, because generally speaking, if you look at our DNA as well, we're strictly digital, right?
Okay.
And if you're strictly digital, we do not involve cash, right? That's not in our DNA. And that's where actually all the fraud really happens, right? Essentially speaking. So with us, I've never heard of anything where, we've had such issues. Never fraud-related issues, obviously. But yes, as in we have our customer service 24/7 present for anyone and everyone. Right?
Okay.
And yeah, as in reach out to us. Let us know if there's any bad experience that customers have had. We keep customer feedback pretty on our forefront, and we want to know. We want to know more about what do you want us to change? What do you want us to add? What do you want us to fix? If you've had a bad experience or not, right? All of those things.
Brilliant.
So yeah, as in, I hope I'm answering your
question.
No,
you did. So what I wanted to tell my audience as well, specifically, is remittance is growing significantly, and there's large digital players. What I definitely suggest is, yes, there are a lot of players. You have to do your own research and get to the right place. And once you get to the right place, and then you're sorted. One good thing I have heard from Daiyaan today is the kind of regulatory requirements that they go through that actually assures all of us as consumers that we are in a safe hands in a way. So you're not really risking a big stuff as such. In the security space, I also have one more question. Then probably I'll not bore you much on the security space afterwards. But when in terms of people having any challenges with the identity, right? I mean, one of the general questions I hear from people, because I lead a lot of Indian community and all that stuff, is when they try to do this identification, all these apps have this digital identification, right? You have to identify your passport and all. How does this happen? Is it more of a robotic automated process, or like are the people sitting and checking this stuff? How do you do the audit of this?
No, as in this is usually an automated process, right? Because customer data is encrypted. It cannot be passed on to anyone. Cannot have human elements onto it, right? So it's essentially because obviously we need to keep our customers' privacy intact as well, right? So essentially, that's one thing. But yeah, as in it's pretty like streamlined now, because obviously again I'll bring in the regulatory frameworks within this, right? The regulations have become very strict, right? The world we live in has newer, more advanced challenges as well, right? True. And that requires for governments and obviously centralized banks to sort of keep a very strict nose on it, right? For companies like us as well to sort of abide by and to ensure customer protection. So that's something that we really look into, right?
That covers a lot on security, which is very comfortable. I'm personally really comfortable hearing all that stuff because we are in safe hand. Because remittance, when you talk about remittance, the biggest question is security, right? Generally, 100%. Because you will have senior citizens, you'll have students coming from different countries 100%. Coming over here. 100%. See, last year, I think if you look at the latest UK news. It's all about like new immigrants. Millions of people are coming, and all of them are coming here. As you rightly mentioned, and in your introduction, there is an emotion to it. That you're here to
100%.
make money for your family. You're sending it back home. So there's a lot of emotion behind it, right? So making sure that we are securing our people in that case is a very, very, very important factor.
100%.
And if LemFi is taking care of it,
100%.
kudos to you guys,
100%.
yeah.
Just one more thing I'd like to add here is that, yes, we're in a digitized age, right? Yes. So there are a couple of things that, customers should be looking into as well, right? So every company, every financial institution has their own specific email addresses, right? Their official email addresses. Make sure if you're getting an email from a specific company, right, they're coming from the official channel, right?
Yeah.
Make sure that if you're getting a call, that should be from the official channel, right? Whatever you're doing, it cannot be a personal number, right?
Yeah.
Any individual just calling you. And to be very honest, a lot of times, because obviously, as I previously mentioned, immigrants generally, I'll talk about myself, right? I'll talk about, a lot of people in Pakistan, are not very financially literate, obviously, right? Obviously, the government's working on it. It's increasing day by day, right? But obviously, there's a long way to go with that as well. So essentially speaking, when we come into a new country with a more advanced financial system, right? We also can tend to become victims as well.
True.
But then we need to also understand that, we need to obviously do our own due diligence as well. So don't just depend on everyone else. Do your own research, right? Do your own research about it. Train yourself, and don't get into like unofficial emails or unofficial numbers reaching out to you about anything, or don't disclose your identity unofficially. Right? If it's an official channel, then that's a different.
Well
thing
said.
altogether.
Well said. Now, the second topic I really want to touch base when it comes to remittance, the biggest discussed topic is how does this fee, I mean, the conversion, the Forex, whatever you call it as, we are sitting in UK again, GBP to INR, India, or GBP to INR, Pakistan, or like whatever the country is. We see different rates in different platforms. So that always surprises me and actually raises a question to me. If my GBP £1 here is 107 in one of the apps, but it's in 108 in a different app, how does it make sense? I get confused.
As in, see, there are two things to it, obviously. One is what part of the business life cycle a company is in, right? Like a lot of companies that are new, they generally also offer it as a customer incentive as well, right? The extra amount. But then, companies like us, we tend to give more to our customers, right? Keep a smaller margin there for ourselves, right? And essentially, it's also about, how good ties do you have with the receiving country as well? So essentially, whenever you're sending a remittance to somebody, it's basically a company in between, sort of trading that FX against that specific country's currency, right? And essentially, the rate that they get, they obviously pass it on to their customers as well, right? So some might keep a bigger margin, some might keep a lower margin, some might try to give as much back to the customer and to the community like us, right? So essentially, that's where essentially the difference in exchange rates generally come.
What you are saying basically is everyone gets the same money, but it's the provider who keeps some for themselves.
Yeah.
And could vary. That's
100%.
why the exchange rates are different.
100%.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And how about like some apps sends money in 2 hours, right? Some apps takes half a day, and some apps takes sometimes more than a day. Like in UK itself, we have multiple apps like yourself. There are some people who's if I send money today, it goes to my India account tomorrow. Whereas like if I send through LemFi, I think it goes immediately. Instantly. So how does it, like, what is the difference between these?
As in, obviously, it really depends on the product as well, right? We essentially, I'll talk about myself. I won't talk about anyone else.
Yeah, no worries.
We essentially, benchmark ourselves to, seconds, right?
Okay.
To probably seconds. And I wouldn't say that we always manage to complete it in seconds, but we do it instantly. Right?
Okay.
That is what we manage to do. So essentially, it really depends on how well is your technological framework, right? How well are your tie-ups, right? And then obviously within remittances, it also depends on the receiver bank that's
Okay.
receiving the remittance as well, right? How quickly are they processing it? Because that one leg of that remittance is that we send it out to them. The other one is obviously where they process it and they credit it into the beneficiary's account, right? Now, if that's taking a while, right, that's not some place that we can do anything in. But however, what we do try to do is to provide as much clarity to our customer as possible whenever a customer gets in touch with us. So we obviously keep the pressure high on our receiving partners as well.
Brilliant.
Where we're always telling them to obviously process our customers payments as soon as possible, because we understand it could be a pain for a lot of people. And we want to enrich people's lives, right? We don't want to create a problem for them, right? So
yeah, it does make a lot of difference actually. So I've had instances where people are coming and saying, my dad is in hospital, so can you send me some money straight away? And it looks like a boon today when I can log into your app and do it in seconds. That's amazing. I mean, as I was telling you, I was in US. I've been in and out of India. I'm originally
100%.
from India, but I've been living outside from 2009, and I've seen the trends changing. Right, it used to take 2 days for me to send money. Right, there was Western Union or some ways of sending money. That was the only way back then. But now things have changed significantly, and I can help people back home within seconds. That's an
100%.
amazing turn. Okay, I just have one more quick question on the remittance industry overall. Right, I mean, the biggest challenge that remittance in my head is more about if I have to deal with multiple banks or multiple customers at the same time, how do you guys deal with? I mean, do you actually have, as a remittance industry, I'm talking about, do you have connections with each country separately, or how does this work? I mean, do you have to for instance, my question, let me phrase it in a different way. It's like you being a remittance company, are you allowed to send money to any country, or you are allowed to send money to only a few countries where you are allowed to do, or do you have any restrictions on that?
As in, obviously, you need the infrastructure to obviously do it. So there are two sides to it. There's a sender side to it, and then there's a receiver side to it. In order to function, so for example, we are present in the UK. I'm going to talk about the UK right now. We obviously need the required licenses to actually be handling cash for on behalf of our customers as well, right? So essentially, you do need some licenses to be present within those sending geographies, right? And then when you're talking about receiving geographies, right? Obviously, you need tie-ups with local entities, either tie-ups with local entities or tie-ups with parties that have tie-ups within those receiving markets as well, right? So they're called payment aggregators. You've got payment aggregators internationally, right? That you can very well work with as well. But then you also you can go directly to those local countries as well, and have tie-ups with banks as well. So
and these payment aggregators can have links with all the remittances.
Essentially, if you look at, I'll talk about Pakistan, right? Pakistan has a singular payment switch, right? If you're working with one bank, you essentially get entrance into the whole ecosystem as well, right? So essentially, you're basically working with one corresponding bank, but then that corresponding bank works on behalf of you in order to create that interconnectivity within the whole ecosystem of the country at large. But obviously that's a very fintech related topic. Obviously that's a very financial services related topic. If I start with that, I believe
let's not go into not too technical. But my question is more on you're allowed to send if you have links. Another question I have in the space of how this money is sent and when is the right time and all. That's my general question, because all the students coming from India or professionals coming from India or Pakistan or Bangladesh, they're here. They would want their sterling to be sent on a higher rate, that always will be
100%,
my
100%.
my priority, right? So, but I see that it's been moving. Like, we had 111 few days, we had 110. I'm talking about INR conversion, and now it's probably trending in 107. How does this change, and when is the right time to send? Do you think people should look for some days, or like, I don't know? Is there an answer to it?
To be very honest, I probably my answer to that would be there are two factors affecting it.
Okay.
Right, obviously. One is the condition of the INR as well, right?
Yeah.
So the Indian economy sort of rules that. The second is obviously when you're sitting in a country like obviously UK, you're earning in GBP, right, and you're sending it to India. There's another factor also affecting the rate that you get, and that is, how is the GBP faring against the, superpower currency, right, which is the USD.
USD, yeah.
So obviously you need to obviously see how the GBP is doing against the USD, and then how the INR is doing against the USD, right, in order to probably get the best rates, right. But then obviously that's just something that I would say that every individual in this day and age should read as much as they can, stay in touch with current affairs, obviously, right. Look for those spots where essentially they can get a better rate. However, we try to keep our customers as informed as possible, right? So we have daily exchange rate checks with our customers. We're sending them information about daily exchange rates as well, right? Just for them to obviously be extremely in tuned with whatever changes are coming in the market, whatever's happening at that particular point in time, right? But yeah, as in, I wouldn't say there's a recipe when it comes to FX, the FX market, or else if probably a remittance company had it, I don't know, as in, we wouldn't really need an FX trading desk then.
No, I know,
right?
I know, I understand.
So yeah.
But how do you guys make money? How does remittance companies make money? I know it's a tricky question, but because when I'm Googling it, one sterling, like 1 GPP to 107.9 and whatever it is, cost is. If I'm coming to LemFi and I'm getting the same cost, and you're saying no transaction fee, what is in it for you then? See, because I'm getting no transaction fee, I'm sending my money, I'm getting the same rate as Google, or like some instances I have got audience, I've used LemFi sometimes, and I did get good rates. I'm sure most of you have used as well. So how does this work? What is the benefit for you?
So essentially, I'll be very honest with you. Like it's like any other. The way I'm going to explain it is, this is a glass that we have, right? If I'm a seller of this glass, I'm obviously buying it from somebody, right? And then I'm selling it to somebody, right? So I buy it and then I sell it for more than I buy it, right? In order to keep a bit of a margin for myself as well. Now, what differs is what the size of that margin really is, right? Some may keep it very high, some may keep it very low, right? Obviously, we try to give as much as we can to our customers, right? Obviously, that's why you see a good rate whenever you open the LemFi app. But obviously, in remittance, the main product is currency. So you're basically buying one currency and selling it off to somebody else who needs it, right? So essentially, that commodity is what we essentially sort of make money from.
So that's the only way you can make money from.
Isn't there a separate ways of making money from it? Obviously, so for example, the transaction fee that you talk about, right? But then it really depends on how a particular company really puts the pieces of the puzzle together, right? And what the agenda is. Okay, we're a for-profit company, but our essential mission is to also mitigate that immigrant financial marginalization, right? So essentially, we try to keep as less as we can and give out as much as we can. So essentially, even if you look at how we work, we have a referral program, right? Every person that you're referring our
It's a 15 pounds, right?
You get a specific commission on
it.
On your first transaction, if you're using a promo code, you get a cashback on it, right? On every transaction, you're getting some reward points against it, right? So that's us giving back. So it really depends, there could be a player, an XYZ player that could be charging a transactional fee, not giving a cashback, right? So it really depends from company to company how you want to sort of structure your business model that way.
Yeah, then it's candid conversations. Okay, I'll be very candid. So okay, I know you're giving all these goodies. I know you're giving this cash bonuses and all, but eventually you have to recover it somewhere, right? Let's say I'm just throwing an example, like a stimulation, right? I mean, just like a say. So a customer X joined LemFi and used £5 as a cash bonus as a first timer, and sent it to somebody as a reference and got 15. But he stopped using LemFi any further because there is so much else, right? Or for that matter, any other app. So you actually lost about £20 in this overall transaction because he's not using you anymore. But yeah, I understand where the dynamics are. But how do you deal with this stuff? Like, is the customer base is so much that all these remittance companies can are they going to suffer any time, or is it going to be recovered in some way?
I think when you look at the payment landscape, remittances is actually a need than a want.
Right,
Right?
right.
And when you're talking about a need, that need is actually growing by the day, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously migration isn't stopping,
True.
right? Um, Migration is happening because of multiple reasons, right? Let's talk about globalization. As country, the world gets more globalized, people are going to get up from one place to go to another, right, in search of whatever need that they're looking to fulfill, right? So essentially that's always going to be there. So it's not like that the market is finishing anytime soon, or is coming to a close anytime soon, right? However, obviously, see, I'll put it this way, right? Any business that you go into, even if it's forget about remittances, right? You talk about selling plants, right? There's always losses. Obviously, losing a customer is always a loss for any company, right? Hence, the 101 of business is customer is king, right? You have to value your customer, right? If you're not doing that, you're in a loss, right? And if we're losing our customer, right, we're essentially failing at something.
That's true.
Right?
So true.
So essentially, that is a loss at our end that we need to factor, right? So at no point can that loss be sort of like, it is a void. A void is a void, and you can't really replace it with anything else. So essentially, what we generally like to do is, even if a customer sort of leaves us, right, try to bring them back.
Yeah, I
right?
know.
We want to bring them back. We want to have them, right? That's why I said in the beginning, right? Give us feedback. Tell us, what do you not like? What do you like? What are those difficult things that you feel that the difficult moments at times that you've had with us? Even if you've had, nobody's perfect, right? At the end of the day, we're all learning, we're all developing, right? And we like to develop through the feedback of our customers.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, now specifically because a lot of my audience are South Asians, and the reason you're on the show as well, because
I'm a South Asian myself.
Yeah.
100%.
So primarily the question is about UK to India. Let's connect about Pakistan and Bangladesh later.
Yeah.
But I've been doing my research, and I see that India is the biggest, probably the remittance
As
space.
in that's no surprise.
Yeah.
India, the remittance space for India is huge, right? It's
Can you tell me some numbers? Then it'll be interesting.
India, to be very honest, if you look at the total remittances India did last year, it was roughly about 135 billion. That's huge.
135 billion.
Yeah, that's huge. 135 billion dollars, right? So
Yeah.
essentially, give or take, obviously. But that's a huge market, right? So even if you look at South Asia, if I'm to rank within South Asia on the remittances as well, India is probably the biggest remittance receiver,
Okay.
right? And then comes obviously Pakistan, and then comes Bangladesh, and then Sri Lanka, Nepal, and so on and so forth. But essentially speaking, as in, yes, if I'm talking about just India obviously, yes, has a huge remittance base. But then you also need to factor in that India is also, probably if I'm comparing India to Pakistan, India is probably 4 to 5 times bigger
True.
than
That's
Pakistan
true.
as well,
That's
with
true.
a bigger demographic as well, right? So essentially, and yes, you need to obviously accept, where one country is doing way more, right?
True.
So if you look at the star of remittances in terms of volumes, India is the star within that
Yeah, that makes a lot of
region.
sense.
Yeah.
And how does, like, considering that, especially Indian market being such a star player right now, how does your specific focus? What's your focus on Indian market? Like, what do you do to reach out to Indian markets, and what is your way of dealing with this particular demand? Because UK to India. And my question is, what's your market size? I know there's a lot. I know you said 135 billion. That's much bigger than a lot of the biggest corporates, right? So in that case, what's your size and what's your way forward for the next 5 years, and what are you thinking about it?
As in, if you look at the UK market for us, right, it's probably our biggest market,
Okay.
right, when it comes to India, right. How do we get there, right? Obviously, as I said, we're a very community represent. We try to represent communities within the organization as well, very strongly. So I'll mention this. I look at South Asia expansions, but Philippe is the head of global expansions, right?
Okay,
He's an
okay.
Indian, right?
Okay.
He's from Kerala, right? Our team is a mixture of Indians and Pakistanis, right? And then obviously, as we keep on increasing the number of countries within South Asia, their representation will also increase within the team as well, right? So essentially, it's more about knowing the customer, being the customer yourself as
I know.
well,
Makes sense.
and then selling something that you buy into yourself, right? So essentially, even if you look at us, we're working with multiple people from the community, right? We're trying to engage ourselves with multiple events, right? We're trying to give back to Indian students, right? To people who are looking to send money back to India, right? So essentially, it's more or less about humanizing the brand, right? Humanizing it not in the way you think a certain diaspora is, but rather humanizing it in a way that the diaspora really is, right?
Makes
So
sense.
essentially, picking people from there, right? Letting them, handle the diaspora at large, right? I'm a Pakistani, right? And since I've been working within LemFi, obviously, and looking at the South Asian market, I was mentioning this to you before our podcast as well, right? That the similarities of South Asian countries and the people within the country,
We're all one
right?
country, subcontinent, right?
It's
Yeah, I know.
it's staggering the similarities,
True,
right? And
true.
essentially, when we're in South Asia, yes, we generally tend to identify the differences. But when you're out of South Asia and when you're an immigrant, right? One of my best friends are Indians, right?
Pretty
One
much
of
the
my
same, yeah.
best friends are Bengalis, right? And there's no difference. I would defend them, right?
Yeah.
Any day of, and I understand them. In fact, I think my Indian friends probably understand me the best,
True.
right?
That
So
makes sense.
essentially,
What's the best times generally? I know you probably would want throughout the year to be the best time, but in the market generally, based on your last 2 years or 3 years understanding, what are the biggest time periods for remittance, especially between UK and India? Is it Diwali? Is it like what's the time? Is it Christmas
obviously,
or what is the time?
it's generally obviously when people have money to send. Obviously, right? If I don't have anything in my pocket, what am I
Yeah.
going to send to my parents?
I know, yeah.
Right? So obviously, when people have money in their pockets and when they're capable of, because see, the kind of business we're in, we're not taking somebody's or convincing somebody to do something that
True.
they don't want to, right?
Yeah, yeah.
They obviously want to send.
They need it, right?
We're just an enabler,
Yeah, yeah,
right? We're
yeah.
just an enabler for them.
Yeah,
That's really about it. So obviously, the patterns of how when people essentially have money in their pocket to probably send to their loved ones, right? Secondly, obviously, yes, as you mentioned, Diwali, right? A Diwali or a Durga Puja, right? Like events, seasonality also plays a role, right? So, for example, in the Pakistani corridor, Eid,
Eid,
right?
yeah.
Eid is big, Ramadan is big, right?
Yeah.
These festivals are huge, right? Probably as in for South India, generally Christmas is also big,
Yeah,
right?
it
So
is, it
essentially,
is.
that's essentially when we see the most amount of traffic going through.
And that's one of the reasons that I'm doing this now as well, because Christmas is the time most of the, especially in UK, immigrants from UK gets their bonuses and wants to send money back home, and because the New Year coming up for like Onam and New Year Sankranti, and so South Asian communities celebrates Pongal a lot.
Yeah.
So we send a lot of money during Christmas time frame because you get the bonus and it's the right time for you to send as well. So I get that really well. So so the question now is, when this particular time frames are very busy, do you as LemFi do anything different to serve customers? Do you guys have special rates, or do you have any special offers, or how do you deal with this?
And see, our DNA is such that we try to give the best value
Throughout,
all year round.
doesn't matter,
right?
okay.
You open our app, you're gonna always see the best value that we're trying to give out, right? Whatever we're capable of, we give back, right? Essentially. But then obviously, like any other business, we also have different campaigns running, right? So, for example, for the African corridors, we're currently doing tickets back to, Africa, probably. Right?
Are you seriously?
Yeah,
That's big.
yeah,
That's
so-
big. Okay, by the way, I have a lot of Ugandan followers
Yeah,
as well. So you have Nigerian presence a lot.
Yes.
Okay.
We do.
Okay.
So we're
So
very.
what is this? I want to learn more about it. What is this tickets thing? Can you expand it?
Get a chance
And tell my Nigerian
get
friends.
a chance to
Yeah.
win a ticket back home, right?
Really?
In order to make
Wow.
it for those festive seasons, right? So essentially, that's what we sort of do, because obviously you go around. You're in UK at the moment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
in London, and you go around probably central London, and you see so many shops having bumper offers there,
True,
right?
true,
because of the festive season,
True.
right? We're very similar to that. Obviously, we're a business at the end of the day as well, right? We're going to try to attract customers towards us as well. And then obviously, part and parcel of that is probably giving them the best value for money, right?
Okay.
And essentially giving them an incentive that our customer may not be able to refuse,
Okay.
right? And essentially, that's the way most businesses do it. So whenever and this is the thing about the financial services sector, right? That I'm trying to that I was trying to draw out as well, right at the beginning of our talk here, or a discussion here, right? Was that financial services, a lot of people, when I talk to them, they think financial services is some, alien world, right? Whereas, financial services is like any other business,
True.
right? You're catering to your customers the same way a different business would, probably a clothing brand would, or somebody else would, right? So essentially, it's all pretty much the same thing. We have multiple offers on our app actually, and I would actually recommend our customers to probably, customers or potential customers, people who are not yet there, to obviously go onto our website, check out what we're doing, go onto our social media pages, check out what we're doing. We're doing a lot of exciting stuff there, right?
That's brilliant.
A lot of exciting stuff there, and then there's a lot planned as well, because obviously 2024 may be ending, but 2025 still yet
I
to
know,
begin.
lot of
right?
stuff,
So
yeah.
new year, new exciting things.
Brilliant, brilliant. So quickly on the LemFi specific stuff, right? And let me talk about Indian market quickly one more time. So some of my audience are Hindi speakers, right? Do you want to say a few words in Hindi if you can?
Yeah.
And why should anybody, especially this student community, a lot of remittance goes from students and professionals, right? That's the major market. So why do you think they should choose LemFi? And if you can speak in Hindi and say that to the audience, it'll be amazing. Yeah.
देखिए, हम आपकी कम्युनिटी में सही हैं, ठीक है, और हम आप में सही हैं, राइट? सो हम समझते हैं कि ऑब्वियसली आप क्या ढूंढ रहे हैं, ठीक है? हम समझते हैं कि ऑब्वियसली आपके दर्द समझते हैं, आपके जज्बात समझते हैं, राइट? और हम आपको अपनी तरफ से आपको अपनी तरफ से जो कुछ दे सकते हैं वो ऑब्वियसली आपको देंगे, एंड जितने आपके मसले हल कर सकते हैं वो हम करेंगे. जहाँ पर कोई कमी पेशी हुई तो आप हमें ज़रूर बताएं. आप घबराएं नहीं, डरें नहीं हम लोग से. हमें बताएं, हमारे कस्टमर सपोर्ट पे जाएं, ठीक है, उनसे ऑब्वियसली रब्ता करें, एंड हमें बताएं हम क्या कर सकते हैं आपके लिए, राइट? बिकॉज जिस तरीके से मैंने शुरू में भी बोला, हम ऑब्वियसली एक नॉन रेजिडेंट इंडियन या फिर एक ओवरसीज़ पाकिस्तानी, राइट, घर छोड़ना बड़ा आसान है, राइट, बट घर छोड़ के ऑब्वियसली एक पराए मुल्क में जाना एंड वहाँ पर अपने ढूंढना, राइट, वो बड़ा मुश्किल काम है. और हम चाहते हैं कि हम आपके वो अपने बन सकें जो आपके लिए सोचें, आपके लिए बेहतरी कर सकें.
Brilliant. Very well. You speak good Hindi, Daiyaan. Very nice. Okay. Now, let's touch upon other markets in South Asia. How good is Bangladesh, or when I say good, in terms of the size and all, because you're in East London now, and a lot of the community around here are Bangladeshi and Pakistani backgrounds, right? So how are the markets in Bangladesh and Pakistan doing for you? And let's talk about each of them separately.
Bangladesh, so Pakistan is a huge market, right?
Okay.
Pakistan and India have become, although we started them probably 7-8 months back, but they're now grown to be one of the biggest markets that we have, right? Whereas for Bangladesh, we're about to start.
Oh,
Right?
okay.
In fact, you can find Bangladesh in our app at the moment. We've already had a soft launch. We haven't really promoted it as yet, but that's something that we're going to be starting very soon, right? Bangladesh.
So when you say very soon, when?
So probably by the end of the within the month as well,
Oh, okay.
right?
That's
So
good.
essentially,
That's good. Not too far.
that's how soon I'm talking about. Bangladesh as a remittance receiver, Bangladesh as a remittance receiver is probably among the top 10 countries of
okay.
the world, right? Then comes obviously Sri Lanka and Nepal, right? They're also big markets. They're obviously big markets, probably not as big as a Bangladesh or obviously India is a different league altogether.
True,
right?
true, true.
India
I mean,
is just,
size.
India
it's
is
big.
4 times what Pakistan does, right?
Yeah.
In a year. So obviously India is a massive market. Pakistan's seen a lot of growth, right? Pakistan ended last year with 32 billion. This year they forecasted to complete roughly about 35, 37 billion, somewhere around that, right? Total.
Okay.
For Pakistan, UK is a very big market, right? There are about approximately more than 2 million Pakistanis in the UK,
True.
right?
True.
Same goes for Bangladeshis, right? Bangladesh is pretty close by as well. Bangladesh is in that category of 28 to 32 billion a year, right? Obviously, then comes Sri Lanka and Nepal, which Nepal is really growing, and so is Sri Lanka, because there are a lot of obviously Sri Lankan friends that we have, especially in Europe, in UK, right? A lot of Sri Lankans as well. So essentially, that's a gist, a summary of the market sizes.
So market is big, very big.
South Asia is a huge market.
Huge
right?
market.
It's a
Yeah,
huge
yeah.
market. However, when I'm talking about where we are in that journey of starting them, Nepal, Sri Lanka, we're probably coming in with that, probably within Jan. Stay tuned for that, right? We're going to be starting them off as well. Bangladesh probably sooner, right? And then obviously we're also trying to go for other Asian markets like the Philippines or Vietnam, right, and so on and so forth. So hopefully 2025 should be exciting.
That
Would
definitely
enable us
sounds
to
very
open,
exciting.
a lot of different markets.
That's brilliant. That's a lot of things happening in South Asia, which is very good. Good. See, one, it's really nice to hear great stuff about a lot of people doing well, coming out, and making money and sending back home. It's amazing. But I just want to understand from the other side of the coin. Okay, how do you get the feedback from the other side, receiver's end? All that we spoke about now is the sender's end, right? How is it different for each of your companies, remittance companies? How do you actually care about the receivers at all, and does it matter? And do you actually try to connect with the receivers, and how does it matter? What is the receiver's end?
As in with the receiver end, obviously we're looking for, when you're talking about remittances, right? And I'm saying that remittance is a story, right?
Yeah.
The story has two sides of it, the sender
True.
and the receiver.
True.
Right? Without either of them, the story would be incomplete, right? As much as we obviously, the sender would not be fully satisfied till the receiver receives the money, right? And then obviously the receiver receiving the money the way they want to receive it, right? With obviously the ease of receiving it, right? So yes, we also take care of that. We might not reach out to them obviously, but how do we do that is by keeping a very strict equation between us and our receiving partners as well, right? Obviously pinging, having service level agreements with them, doing, there are multiple ways of sort of ensuring that obviously things are going as planned, as we would want them to, right? And then obviously we get feedback from our customer base as well, right?
Okay.
So our customer base lets us know we have a very good retention within all markets, which for us is a sign of, if a customer is coming twice, right? There must be something that we're doing
True,
right.
true.
Right?
That is absolutely true. And you touched upon really important point then, which I was about to come. You gave me a very good lead in terms of the retention. So, like you said, there are plenty of millions of people who join the apps to send money. But what is the general retention rate in the remittance industry? And especially, let's talk about LemFi. Do you have numbers with you? I mean, what's your retention rate?
As in, there are no.
So let's talk about UK specifically.
There are no formal public numbers for that. But if you generally look at, as a South Asian, I can say that I'm a very price sensitive person.
Yeah.
Right. South Asians are generally, at least I'll talk about myself. Not about anybody else.
Absolutely fine. Yeah.
I, as a South Asian, am a very price sensitive customer, right? I'm always out there to, get an offer, right? Dealing with or handling money for me is a very high involvement process, right? I'm very highly involved in it. I want to see everything, any hidden charges or not, right? All of those things. So obviously, at the end of the day, the customer is also smart, right? The customer also. You cannot underestimate the customer at any point, right? The customer knows what they may not know in the beginning, but eventually they learn, because obviously South Asians are also, obviously if you look at South Asians in math, right?
Very strong
at that, very strong at that, right? Very commercially sound, right? So obviously they generally and a very hard-working, resilient group of people, right?
True.
So obviously, if you're not understanding what your customer needs, then your retention could be very low, right? Obviously, service quality really matters as well for them, right? It's not like you can treat them however you want, right? You need to obviously, everyone has their own way of expecting things of you as a company, and your challenge is to understand that. Your challenge is to understand what your customer really needs. If you're fulfilling their needs and wants, that's when the customer is going to stick by, right?
Good.
And people who are essentially doing it, companies who are essentially doing that, they see good retention rates.
I'm glad to see you have good retention rate. That's very good.
Yeah.
And I have one technical question maybe. There is, when I do the remittance, I do two options. One doing it through the bank transfer, then through the debit cards, right? What is the difference between these two? For consumer, I know what the difference is, probably, the process and all that stuff. But how is it different for the remittance companies? Does it make any difference from where they're spending money?
As in, generally speaking, every card transaction costs the
does.
remittance company as well. Right?
Okay.
We have our own wallet, so a customer generally needs to fund their wallet as well, and then send money. The good thing about our wallet is that as they fund, they can also take out. Right.
Okay.
So that's really not an issue when it comes to us. Bank transfers generally.
That's very interesting, actually. So I want to spend some time here because that's a very interesting point. So somebody can send money into LemFi wallet, keep it there, whether they want to send it or not. If they don't want to, if they need, they don't like the rate or whatever it is.
They can even.
They can actually take it.
They can transfer it.
That's
to
very interesting. I don't think it is everywhere.
At least for the UK, I can speak about the UK at least. We're definitely enabled to do that within the UK.
That's brilliant, actually. When I say it's not everywhere, I think not every app does this.
Yeah, because not every app has a wallet.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So there are competitors that have wallets. There are competitors that don't have wallets. Right. We have our own wallet, a LemFi wallet. In fact, in a lot of diasporas, we also offer the service of multiple currency accounts as well, right?
Oh, very interesting.
Parking it in different currencies as well, right? So essentially, like if you look at the LemFi product, it's a comprehensive product, right? Again, as I say, we try to keep it as easy for the customer as possible, right? So the customer is enabled to do more than what they believe a remittance app could be.
Is this well said enough in your whatever commercials or because I haven't seen this. This is very interesting advantage actually, because I was asking you a question: when is the right time to send? So if I'm somebody who wants to send money only when it is high rate, then I probably can keep my money in the wallet and watch out for the rates. and you reach out to customers saying what the transaction rate is for that day or exchange rates are
As in we
different
generally
ways.
Customers get notifications.
Notifications,
from our
yeah.
platform.
When I say reach out, yeah, you get the notifications. So I can actually watch out for the rate, and whenever is the best rate, I can send it.
Yeah, 100%.
It's a brilliant, brilliant
100%.
differentiator.
100%. So people generally do keep funds in their wallet, and
Okay.
whenever they want to, because see.
And does LemFi do anything with that wallet money? No, right?
No,
you don't
no,
even
not
touch.
at all. Not at all. We can't do that.
I'm just asking. It's
not
candid
at all, not at all.
conversation. Yeah.
That's actually, obviously, a very big customer protection side as well. Right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
your money is there. It's
just
yours,
in the wallet.
right? It's yours. You can take it out whenever you want. You can send it whenever you want. You can put money in there whenever you want, right? We don't get to define that.
It is really big differentiator there, and I haven't seen enough on this
100%.
in your materials.
In fact,
At
we've
least.
actually started an additional thing within, the UK. We've started when you register, you automatically get a £5,
Bonus.
sign-up bonus.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only catch to that is that £5 can only be used once you fund an additional amount within your wallet. And if you use that £5, additional £5 for an FX transaction, which is, let's suppose in India's case, for Indian customers sending money back to India, for Pakistani customers sending money back to Pakistan, right? That's when you can sort of use it.
That's very interesting. And I think one of the other differentiator for you is the no transaction fee. Because I do use Remittance a lot. I send money back home. Most of the companies do have some transaction fee, right? Is that your intent to stay that forever, or is it like for now? But at least for now, it's a benefit.
It's right now we have it, but it's business at the end of the day, right? So obviously, we also need to, in order to serve our customers, we need to also survive, right? So obviously, if I can't really talk about the future, but right now, transactions are
It's a
free.
very good benefit actually. So no transaction fee, immediate transfer. You have wallet facility.
So a lot of facilities.
A lot of very good stuff.
And yes, stay tuned. 2025 is going to be much more exciting.
Yeah, very interesting. So one more interesting factor, or a very important factor in any of the financial transaction space is the customer service. What kind of customer service options do you have, and how do you guys deal with it? Do you have let's hear from you.
So we obviously have a call center as well. You can just pick up the phone or
is it a 24/7 call center?
Yes, it's a 24/7 customer support that we have. You can we have in-app messaging as well to the customer support individuals as well. We have our official customer support email address as well that you can find within the app.
Okay.
Right? And even on our website, right? So whenever an issue arises, we try to, and interestingly, whenever an issue comes up, we try to fix it as soon as possible, right? So yeah, as in there are multiple ways for that.
What's your turnaround time for an issue? Do you have
as in it also depends on the nature of the issue as well, right? So for example, if there's an issue, let's suppose, I'll just give you an example. If there's an issue with probably the receiver, right? And somebody's sending money at like, I don't know, at 5 p.m. UK time. That's probably about 12 a.m. in India, right? Or probably about 10, 11 p.m. in Pakistan, right? Essentially speaking, as in, that kind of case can obviously take a tad bit more time, because obviously banks in Pakistan and India are closed at that time, right? They're after banking hours. But essentially, if there's anything at our end, we try to solve it instantly, right?
Brilliant.
We don't like to hold up anything and be a hold up or be a dead end for anyone, right? Again, we're enablers, right? So enabling customers to get like a seamless experience.
Okay, and I think this is probably the last area which I want to touch is the technology itself, right? How different LemFi from other players in terms of technology? How advanced are you, or what is that you do to make yourself different from other technologies?
See, I can't really answer this from a competitor's perspective, obviously, because for that I need to know more about the system, right?
Yeah.
But obviously,
I'm sure you will watch out. You watch out your competition.
As in obviously, because like I'm not the technology. I'm not in the technology
Understood.
department,
Understood,
or
yeah.
even somebody behind the desk, looking at coding away or something of that sort. But I can assure you that when you're talking about LemFi, the instant transfers is a guarantee of, or I would say an advocate of, probably our technology being actually one of the best. I wouldn't call it the best, but one of the best. Why wouldn't I call it the best? Because obviously I don't want to sound as if I'm a know-it-all.
You want to be humble,
right?
yeah.
So yeah, as in we're one of the best in the market, and precedent to that is obviously our rapid growth in the market as well, right?
That's brilliant.
We're one of the most rapidly growing companies out there, right?
What's the size at the moment?
As in, we're all over the world. We're an international company. I'd have to have an NDA in order to disclose that.
No. I mean, say whatever. It's a public domain. Yeah.
No worries.
But
It's a candid conversation.
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
treating you like
Yeah.
somebody I'm
But
very
I've heard. I mean, we were audience. We were actually setting up this one, and one of our, the photographers came up. I mean, he's from Nigeria, and he came up and said, "Okay, I use LemFi as well." So you have Nigerian presence as well.
Yeah,
Brilliant Nigerian presence. I think lot of presence in African region as well, right?
Our co-founder is Nigerian,
Yeah.
right? Ridwan Ulalare. He is Nigerian. He's from Nigeria. He's from Lagos.
It's a lot.
And yes, and we serve both francophone markets and anglophone markets of Africa.
That's brilliant.
Obviously, and Africa is obviously a big market as well in itself. Although I wouldn't know the nitty-gritties of it.
Yeah, I know. I understand.
But on a surface level, I can say that it's a pretty big market.
That's very interesting because, I mean, the reason it is interesting for me and for my audience is because most of my audience are Indians communities, and Uganda, Nigeria, and a lot of African markets, especially Kenya, Uganda, and Nigeria. A lot of Indian Gujarati community is kind of third generation, second generation in there, and a lot of them do use remittance, and I think it makes a lot of sense. One thing I want to know from you then, because you sound like a people person and you deal with people a lot. One very important thing about any of the new gen companies is about the culture, because you would want to have good talent into firm. So if I want to understand about your firm's culture and like inclusion and all that stuff, right? Which is a very very common aspects of
Obviously.
of any firm
Obviously.
in today's generation,
Obviously.
right? So how inclusive or what is your take on culture as a firm? Like talk like an employee now. How do you rate LemFi's culture as a firm?
As in, honestly, I'll be honest. LemFi's culture, most financial institutions I've been in, they have their positives, but then they also have their negatives. When I'm talking about LemFi is, and I'm not just saying this because I'm here, right? It's actually more of a family.
Oh,
right?
that's good.
We're more like a family, as in, we generally tend to take care of each other, be empathetic towards each other, right? But yes, we have a very progressive mindset, so we obviously hold each other accountable as well, right? We tend to differentiate between movement and progress, right? That's something we essentially tend to do, because obviously you can be moving, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're progressing.
True.
Right? So that's essentially what we try to do. Our approach to everything has always been, very highly involved within every decision, right, that we take. We think about it from different angles, right? There's no big or small within the company, right? I'm learning every day from my peers, right? They learn from me, right? And essentially we try to keep each other going, right? We try to be each other's motivation. We try to be human beings at the end of the day. And that's actually one of the best things that I've found within the company.
Brilliant.
Right?
And your leaders are young, very young, is it?
Yeah, they're young as well. Both co-founders are very good people, very friendly people,
Very nice.
right? Listen to everyone, right? Our CEO probably comes to the UK, he meets everyone, right? He meets everyone. He goes and meets everyone, has a relationship with everyone, right? Philippe and I, we try to keep, Philippe and I, we were like probably Philippe gets a call from me every morning, right? Before even he hears his family, he hears me, right, on the phone. And so is the case with the teams working with us, right? So essentially, we all generally try to be one big happy family.
That's
right?
amazing.
And that's how it goes. Because see, at the end of the day, we're all immigrants as well, and we all understand each other's problems, right? So we try to be there for each other.
So you're connected more culturally, right? Okay, that's brilliant. And as a firm as well, the because startups or young generation
100%.
companies mostly the mindset will be entrepreneurial mostly, right? You want to achieve big because you grow with the firm. So I think most of you will have that in common, right? As the firm grows, you grow as well. So I think
For us, it's more about achieve big, achieve right, right, and keep your goals very
realistic,
clear, right, and realistic as well, clear as well,
yeah,
and do it the right way,
yeah.
right. Do it the right way. There's no shortcut to anything,
That's
right.
brilliant.
Do it the right way. Don't try to go get into anything dodgy. Don't do any of that. That's the philosophy. We're very strict on how we present ourselves as well, right?
Okay.
We try to be compliant with everything, with ethics, with the regulations, with everything, right? So essentially, that is like in the crux of the company.
That's brilliant. It's a very refreshing to hear that kind of cultural dimension of the company, because it does help the people who wants to join your firm, that understanding culture is really Gen Z is all about culture. Gen Z is not looking for the paychecks. Gen Z is not looking for huge money. They consider it to be given. I mean, if I'm working hard, I'll get money. So what's different? What Gen Z or the today's generation is looking for basically is what kind of firm I'm working for. Like, is it
100%.
culturally, how they are fitting into this. It's brilliant. It's brilliant to hear all that. It's very refreshing, actually, to be very honest. I want to end with one very interesting aspect about success stories. We talk about the firm is growing so well and all. But do you have any stories that you want to share with the audience that you heard from either your customers saying that okay, whatever, I don't know the story, but do you have any stories that you want to share which moved you and said that okay, my purpose is met now, I'm with the right place, I'm doing
As
the
in,
right
obviously, it's probably every day that we hear this, right?
Okay.
So for example,
Do you want to share a couple of stories like that?
as in
It could be your employee or customer.
Just right off the bat, a
Yeah.
customer, right? Obviously, I was seeing, somebody constantly looking at my profile on LinkedIn, right? And eventually I get an inbox, from a customer saying that, thank you so much for your service. I was able to save my mother, right? Because
Wow.
I could get money to her on time for her checkup to happen, for her procedure to happen, right? And these things actually
move
really
you.
humble us,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It moves us, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
obviously we're human at the end of the day, making a difference. Obviously, if I don't take myself to be somebody who's very big or powerful, right, or any of that. I'm a very small person, right? And if I'm being able to do that, right, that's God's work that we're doing then.
On that very positive note, thank you so much, Daiyaan. It's been really good conversation. Audience, I know you had a lot of questions. I hope I have covered all of that. So remittance is a very interesting space, and there's so much happening in the remittance space. So do watch out. And while I close this, I do want to hear from Daiyaan in our language, if you can speak to your Pakistani friends, and say a few words. Why LemFi?
Why LemFi?
आप अगर हिंदी में बोल सके, उर्दू में बोलना चाह रहे तो आप.
As in, देखो, why LemFi obviously, जैसे मैंने पहले भी 10 दफ़ा कहा, अभी वापस से कहूँगा, हम रोज़ मेहनत करते हैं, मेरे इंडिया के भाइयों बहनों, मेरे पाकिस्तान के भाइयों बहनों, मेरे बांग्लादेशी भाइयों बहनों, राइट. हम लोग कल आपके पास भी आएंगे, राइट. पहले अभी तो इंडिया और पाकिस्तान के भाइयों बहनों से मैं बात करूँगा, मुखातिब हूँगा कि हम अपनी कैपेसिटी में जो कर सकते हैं हम आपके लिए कर रहे हैं, राइट. एंड ऑब्वियसली अगर आपको एक ऑब्वियसली दोस्त चाहिए तो LemFi आपका दोस्त बन सकता है, राइट. बट आपको रेमिटेंस ऐप चाहिए तो वैसे तो बहुत सारे हैं, राइट. सो ऑब्वियसली थोड़ा भरोसा रखें एंड हमें भी बताएं, फीडबैक दें अपना, राइट. हम रोज़ के हिसाब से कोशिश करते हैं कि आपको बेस्ट रेट्स दे सकें, हम आपको बेस्ट सर्विस दे सकें, हम आपकी मसलों को हल कर सकें, राइट। और अगर कोई ऐसी चीज़ हो जो हमसे रह जाए, वो आप हमें प्लीज़ बिला झिझक आप हमें रीच आउट टू अस, हमें बताएं, ठीक है, कि यार ये आप बेहतर कर सकते हैं, राइट। बिकॉज ऐसे ही है कि हम अपने अगले कदम सीख पाएंगे, राइट। आप हैं तो हम हैं, राइट, आप नहीं हैं तो हम में से कोई भी नहीं है। So yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Dan. So, audience, I've been talking to various people in the business, and the intent of this conversation is to bring that clarity on the remittance services, how we should, take care of. We touched on various things. We touched upon security aspects of the remittance. I know everyone will have a lot of questions about, if I'm sending money across to a different country, is it safe or not? I hope this conversation helped in addressing those questions. We touched upon how do you take care of the identification matters in the remittance space. Hope that is helpful as well. And we also touched upon when to send, why to send, how does this wallets work, and why it's important to kind of choose the right company or right. I mean, I'm not here to promote LemFi, to be very honest, but I'm here to talk about remittance as a service, how much it is growing, and I've been hearing. I had a lot of questions. So I had questions like when to send money, and why I choose certain app and all that stuff. And there's a lot of good stuff in the remittance area, and each of us do send money to home. So watch out for this space, and it's amazing stuff. A lot of great things happening, and Daiyaan kindly agreed to sit with us and share all this knowledge with us. I know there's so much happening. Daiyaan, we will watch out, and if you come back to London, let's see if we can meet again. Daiyaan is from Norway, by the way. He's originally Pakistani, but he lives in Norway. And in your busy schedule, you came up here and shared some time with our audience to respond to all the remittance questions. It's really, really helpful. Because it's a very difficult space. It's not easy space to. I know people wants to send money, but it's not easy space to understand.
But thank you for having me. It was a pleasure being here. And if you're ever in and around Norway,
yeah, for sure.
Please give me the pleasure to host you as well.
Hope I have made you comfortable.
No, 100%. You have been a true gentleman.
Yeah.
And obviously always happy to come again. Loved every minute of it. Obviously.
And candid conversations were not too difficult for you, right?
Yeah,
Candid enough.
As in they weren't candid enough, but I try to be as honest as I can.
Yeah,
right.
That's good.
And honesty obviously takes you a long way. Probably some people may not like it, some people would like it. But remain honest to yourself, remain honest to the world, and remain honest to your work. And
brilliant.
Life's going to be easy.
That's a brilliant note to end. Thank you so much, audience. See you again in the Candid Conversations in the next episode with one more business people, probably in the financial sector again. I'm hoping to have one more interesting guest in the next session. But thank you. Stay tuned. Let's continue to have our conversations candid and good. Thank you, guys.
All right.